Welcome everybody to Forest Lake Area Schools, Thursday, March 7th, school board meeting. Let's open up with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome everybody. If you have any questions about what we're trying to get done here as a school board, there's some information over there on the table. Also, if you'd like to speak on one of our agenda items, there will be a green card over at that table. Get it to me right away, and I'll let you have up to 3 minutes during scheduled and unscheduled visitors. And with that, Member Clerk, could you please take a roll call?
Member Kettle?
Here.
Member Luthner? Here. Member Peterson's absent. Member Tyson?
Here.
Member Rayfield?
Here.
And Member Olson is absent, and Member Corcoran is here.
All right, we don't have any changes to our meeting agenda, and so scheduled and unscheduled visitors. Do you have a listening session report?
The listening session was done, no one showed up today. However, I'd like to add one note to it. We did all receive an email from Alicia Lutz about the possibility of getting a Spanish immersion coordinator request for the district. And so I'd like to add that, just entered in the notes, they couldn't attend the listening session, but they said.
You wanted to come.
Perfect. All right, thank you. Superintendent?
Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Devin Vocek and some students from our environmental club. If you guys want to come up. Devin and high school students from the environmental club have been working really hard around environmental issues at the high school, throughout the district, and for that matter, throughout the community.
Steve, could I interrupt a second? If there's any parents who would like to take, or anybody would like to take pictures, you can come up around here, feel free, and, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Their work has earned the high school the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools Award, and the group's work will be nominated to the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon School for the Green School Ribbon Award. So, Devin, congratulations to you and your students. If you'd share a few things and give some background, that'd be great.
Yep, and I did print out a copy of our summary for everybody. Thank you.
Devin is our earth science teacher as well as our environmental club advisor for the high school. So does some great work for us.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time tonight. We are very proud that the Forest Lake Area High School is nominated as a 2019 Minnesota Green Ribbon School nominee for the U.S. Department of Education. As a classroom teacher and the environmental education club advisor, I can see firsthand how students truly care about the environment. My goal is to foster their interest, to create local and global awareness on environmental issues, and allow them to take action. In earth science, we focus on the human and earth interactions, and students learn about the solar panels on the rooftop of the high school. They learn about the water reuse program, and they also learn about the global perspective on different environmental issues. Two students, Caitlin and Jake, spent significant time working on the Green Ribbon School's application, including meeting with Bill Schwartz to learn more about our building. They collected different points of data, and they also contributed to the writing of the application. So they'll come up and say a few words about their experience. So.
Jake, you can do it.
Thank you, Ms. Vocek. So the U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Schools recognizes schools that have outstanding performance in environmental and human health and well-being practices. And so, as I think it says in the handout, there's 3 pillars: promoting energy efficiency, promoting human health and well-being, and providing effective environmental education. I was heavily involved in writing up the report on the first pillar, which is like energy and water efficiency. And our school has recently done a lot of different things to promote energy and water efficiency, including solar panels on the roof, energy efficient construction, water efficient boilers, water conservation projects, natural irrigation, and many things like that. And so we were able to provide a very strong application, or we were able to provide a very strong energy efficiency, demonstration of our energy efficiency. And then Caitlin, I believe, helped a lot with parts 2 and 3 of the application.
My primary focus was on the third pillar, which focuses on how teachers all over the school integrate environmental concepts into their curriculum. So I went around and interviewed a bunch of teachers about how they did that. And I believe this is important for students to get a big variety of where that environmental concepts come from. In their FIAD classes, biology, agriculture, they get to go outside and learn in their natural environment. And then in economics and agriculture, they learn about natural resource scarcity. And then in history, world history and international relations, they get to analyze past responses to environmental issues and make their own opinions. And I think that is a great way to go forward, and they need to have that environmental literacy base before they can act on it.
Excellent.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah. Any questions, comments?
Well, I'd just like to thank you for your work. My daughter is in environmental science and a graduate 2015. She would have loved to have been part of your club. How long have you had it? Is this the second year or?
I think it's been about 4 years.
4 years. Wow.
So we have been, we are a YES team, which stands for Youth Eco Solutions. And the funding for our YES team comes from Apex Efficiency Solutions, which help coordinate with the solar panels. And so we are supported by an outside company to have a statewide network of support. And one of the things from the Youth Eco Solutions team is a coach who is a retired civil engineer and architect, and he worked closely with Jake on the B3 benchmarking to understand energy efficiency in our building. So we really have a statewide network of support.
How many are in the club?
We communicate through Google Classroom, which is electronic, and on our Google Classroom we have 76 members.
Wow. Well, I know this generation has a lot of energy for environmental issues, and I just commend them for their work on the application, and I love the examples you gave throughout our high school, how kids are learning that within their curriculum in different classrooms as well. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great work.
Yeah, congratulations.
So again, thank you, Devin, for your leadership, students for your hard work and leadership there as well. Next, if I can ask Katie Lorenz and Amy Hussett to come on up. Both Katie and Amy have recently earned their national board certification, which is a process that requires that teachers demonstrate standards-based evidence of the positive effect they have on student learning in alignment with the 5 core propositions related to the national board certification. They must exhibit a deep understanding of their students' content knowledge, use of data and assessments, and teaching practice. They must also show that they participate in learning communities and provide evidence of ongoing reflection and continuous learning. They are national board certified because they're exceptional teachers. It's a daunting process, so thank you for your hard work on that, but also your incredible gift of education to the district. There are about 118,000 members in the country only who have this national certification, 2 of whom are in our district, Katie and Amy. So congratulations, and it'd be awesome if you'd share a few things.
Well, we chose to do ours, first of all, together, which I would never do it any other way, so kind of working as our own cohort. And what we're hoping is that we can maybe start a cohort or some type of support in Forest Lake for other people. There's a whole host of certification areas you can pick, so it's everything from early childhood and like every specialty that you run into the high school. We both chose literacy. And it just really, there's 4 components, you work through each. We took 3 years to do it, and our certification is good for 5 years, and then we'll have to do it again.
There's, like Amy said, 4 components. So component 1 is assessment. So we had to go to Pearson and just do a test around early literacy. Our grade band was age 3 through 12, I believe. Component 2, we had to differentiate instruction. So we each had to pick students from our classroom and write a lengthy summary on what a unit of instruction looked like for that student compared to peers and why we were making the instructional choices we were. Component 3 was all about, now I forgot. Component 3 was a video.
It was the video.
So we had to video ourselves and submit 2 15-minute videos, one of large group instruction and small group instruction, and again, write a lengthy paper as to why we made very small instructional choices. I mean, to every single prompt that you made during the lesson, you had to kind of write and explain. And then component 4 was the assessment, so we had to outline assessments we were given in the classroom, how we were scoring them, how they were driving instruction, and then also a heavy emphasis on being teacher leaders within our PLC communities or within our school communities or committees within our school or district. So, yeah, it was a great professional experience. Yes.
Katie is a district-wide literacy coach for us, serving teachers, coaching teachers throughout our elementary system, and Amy is a second grade teacher at Forest View Elementary.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was just curious, how long did that daunting process take?
We chose to do it in 3 years. Some people do actually all 4
Years.
components in 1 year, and I don't know how they do that.
Wow.
So we did 2 components the first year, 1 component, and the final component we just finished last year. So
Wow, well,
we chose to draw it out a little bit.
Oh, congratulations, and we're so proud to have you in our district.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No, it'd be great if it starts growing, and
Yes.
including more staff, and really. So I mean, and you said 3 years. I mean, do you work? Is it all year long, or do you have like the summers off, or how did the timing work for you around your school, around teaching and?
The submission period is May, so each May we had to have all of our things uploaded into an electronic portfolio and sent off. But then we never heard until December if you passed or not.
Oh wow.
So they send,
Wow.
they send your work out and have multiple people kind of grade it and then put it all back together. So you sign up or you register December, January, then you can use any data from that school year, but it has to be submitted in May.
Okay. Wow.
So a lot of weekends and evenings in the spring.
Wow.
So you get-
There are support groups in Minnesota, so we would go to Shoreview every Saturday, a month,
Yeah, like
one
once a-
Saturday.
yeah.
Oh, good.
And then they, the network that does it throughout the state, they have a weekend retreat, so
Oh.
they just had it last weekend, and we went to help other people, which was a great feeling, but we would do tons that weekend. You would just work and have other people read yours and give revisions, and like I said, we read each other's over and over, and our peer coaches were very helpful. Just, they videotaped us and did some of those kind of things too, so.
That's a big commitment. So.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Literacy is just so critical, and and we know that, but I think we all have to be continuously reminded that it's such an important thing to get our kids going at an early age, because it makes such a difference in everything else that comes after. So I really appreciate you guys going the extra mile on this one, and really appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Way to go.
Congratulations.
All right, student achievement, superintendent?
We've got Wyoming Elementary, second grade, and Principal Mr. Slater. So thank you so much for being here. Take it away.
Thanks for having us. Super excited to be here. We're going to let the presentation get up, ready to go. That's what the board didn't know. I wore Dr. Massey's really favorite colors.
I know.
He doesn't tell everyone that, but we all know his true favorite color.
It's killing me.
I started out with this photo because this is a picture of our students, and a thank you to Mr. Brockman that came up with the drone. No directions, just gave it to the sixth graders to try to get them to spell Aurora. So you can see it there. The one R needs a little bit more shaping, but again, the A is a little bit curved. But to watch the kids try to figure out like where's that drone going to be, and it was flying up, and they have to try to get organized to take the picture. And the staff are kind of off on the sidelines, just they're in there. So one of the things that I believe as a leader and around teachers every day is that we are constantly looking at unlimited potential of our kids. You know, we look back when we went to school and what they thought we could do in kindergarten. I look at what other kids, just today I had one of my kindergartners, they practice reading, and one of their highlights, they get to come down and read to me, but to see some of the books that they're reading and pronouncing words and just all these things. So when we really look at unlimited possibilities, we have to look at their full potential. And that doesn't happen without a great team. So as a picture of our team, we did a Booster-thon fundraiser this year, which was going right with kind of the district guidelines around healthy fundraisers. So the students would get donations for laps, and then they would run laps, and parents would come, and it was a glow run in the gym, and all the staff had a chance to get a shirt, so a lot of fun there. So I challenged the board, if they really want to follow along on what we're doing, is to get on social media, because every single day we're trying to promote all the positive things going on, because we all know that sometimes the negative noise is a lot stronger. So we really push out the positive, but these are all the different voices. We have a student voice on Twitter, we have my voice, a lot of the teachers now have a voice, not only through Facebook, but Seesaw and some other ones, but just a few hashtags that you can follow along the way. Dr. Massey is on, it's fun to watch him, tweet away and get some of those different things. So we talk about what in creating schools, we want staff and parents beating down the doors to get in, not out. And so that's a quote from Shelley Burgess, an author, and that's really what we've tried to create at Wyoming Elementary, is this culture of we need a strong foundation of positivity where kids can take risks to learn, but staff need that same thing. So one of the highlights that I wanted to promote, and I really tried to get Ms. Rehnquist here, but she does not like to speak in front of the board or adults. She's an amazing teacher, and what she did though is I want you to remember maybe when you went through school, or when I went through school, or even some of the Wyoming kids when they went through school last year or the year before, and then a healthy eating unit. What does that look like for most schools, a healthy eating unit? Larry's in the room, Larry Martini's in the room. We don't have a budget for food, right? And some of those, but Ms. Rehnquist had a passion in her heart when we talk about going the extra mile for kids. So we wrote a SHIP grant, and all of the kids created different protein groups, grains, all of those different things. All of it was professionally made, and we had a grant that covered all of that. And then the kids were able to present that to not only their teaching staff, but then we also had some community members that come in. And so I wanted to show you a video of what happens after you give kids ownership. So let me log in here quick.
Kindergarten, be ready to get up and dance, because today we're teaching about the 5 food groups. First up is fruit. It goes like this. Fruits, they're very good for you, good for you, good for you. Do you know some fruits are veggies too? Ooh! Next up is dairy. It goes like this. Dairy is very good for you, good for you, good for you. Dairy makes your bones strong and healthy too. Ooh! Next up is veggies. It goes like this. Veggies are very good for you, good for you, good for you. Did you know veggies make your heart healthy too? Ooh! Next up is protein. It goes like this. Protein, very good for you, good for you, good for you. Protein helps you stay full longer too. Ooh! Now watch out, because it's time for grains. Grains, they're very good for you, good for you.
So some of you might say, so okay, where do we go with that? Right?
Energy.
Yeah, the energy, but not only when we talk about this is that the energy, there wasn't a packet that they had to do, but they created these videos for the younger grades. So we're using Flipgrid, so now these videos are for different age groups. We have a kindergarten group, a first grade group, and so now when students are learning about it, some of their sixth grade part are coming in to do some of the different things to remember all the different food groups. So it was a very cool opportunity, not only for our students, but for also Ms. Rehnquist, to see what happens when we turn ownership over to kids and take the limitations off of what the day could look like. And how many kids are still singing those songs? I want you to know, yesterday we had, I think it was chicken or something, and the kids started going, protein, protein, you know, as the sixth graders kind of singing their songs. So you can kind of see the different pictures around that. We also do a Merry Math opportunity that is right before the holiday break. Merry Math is really about creating a curriculum for kids to make it real. So how many times we teach kids 4 plus 7? And you're working with a first grader 4 plus 7, but all of a sudden when you're making it real and they're starting to look at 4 things hanging on the doorsteps and you add 7 more and they're able to move things around. So all the way from where they were figuring out like how much would that cotton, it wasn't cotton candy house, but how much would the gingerbread house cost? And each one of those, the pretzels worth this much. But the really cool thing about it was all of the projects had differentiation. So there was higher levels for the 6th grader all the way down to the younger levels. And the part that I couldn't capture on video was watching the 6th and 5th grade students go down and grab the first and kindergarten groups and go around and give some of those experiences with them. Another highlight for us this year, we had Grandparents' Day. This is a quick selfie that I took with them. And it was just really to show you, this is just one grade level. So this year we had 863 grandparents show up. And the part that not only was amazing, we had one of the grandmas, when I told her like how this all came about, that, you know, this is, and she said she had 2 more years left in Wyoming, so she went in the office and wrote out a $2,000 check so that we can continue this. Some people would say, well, isn't that a distraction to the educational process? It's actually the exact opposite, because the kids are teaching them all the different things they're learning about, and then watching the grandparents work with the kids to figure out what was the cost of gasoline or a loaf of bread. And then how much did inflation went up. So just to see some of those different highlights, but the real highlight of all of this is the teachers. You know, and so I accepted the award last month from the state of Minnesota, but I wanted to say thank you to the Wyoming staff, Dr. Massey, the school board that gave me the opportunity to go up to Washington, D.C. to experience it. I had a chance to be in the Wyoming parade, and it was just a very humbling experience, because really I wish the whole staff could have been with me the whole journey, because it's from the teachers and the paraprofessionals and the custodians and the lunch ladies that create the atmosphere at Wyoming for us. So I just want to quickly say thank you and turn the show over to the teachers that do the magic every single day.
All right. So we are 3/4 of the 2nd grade crew. We were going to do our dance, but since the 4th is not here, we have only actually been a team together. This is our first year with all 4 of us. So we refer to ourselves as 14, 6, 1, and 13's not here. So last year was the first year that Deidre, Bree, and I were also together, so it's a relatively new team with switching things around. And with new teams coming together, we just felt we needed to do some things differently than had been done before. That was a part of my job. So one of these strategies that we have implemented in 2nd grade at Wyoming is we use flexible grouping for our math instruction. So
yes, so how we start our flexible grouping is we start each homeroom or each teacher in their classroom starts with a pretest. And it's the same layout as the post-test that they'll take at the end of the unit, just to see where all of our students are at and what various learning they have. So
there we go. Along with the pretest, we make a little teacher-created rubric to go along with it. It's a 1/4 of a page, whether the kid has the skill or not already. So not only are we looking at their overall score of that pretest, we're also looking at specific skills within the test that they know. Because then we use those small rubrics. So we divide the groups up into 4 groups, or flexible grouping for the unit, and then that teacher has all those rubrics for each child, and they can make further differentiated small groups within the homogeneous group that they then have in their classroom.
So we meet this as our PLC, we sit down and we all have our tests, we look at it, we talk about just overall in the whole grade, like what skills are they really good at, what skills are they lacking or haven't been introduced yet. We just finished up a unit today, and when we looked at the baseline data for that, rounding was one of the skills that we taught in this lesson, and very few of our students had that, but it's a skill that's new to second grade. We did subtraction with regrouping, and hardly any of our students were able to master that on the pretest baseline data, but that's also a new skill for second grade. So we were able to see, like, we know as a whole grade, those are the two skills where everyone is going to focus on, but then we could differentiate it. So my group, those were really the only two skills my students hadn't mastered. So I touched on the other ones just as a quick review, but we were able to spend our time really going into rounding and even going into higher numbers. The second grade skill only has them rounding to the tens or hundreds. I was able to take my group into rounding into the thousands and the 10,000s because they were able to quicker master the second grade skills, and I was able to push them on. We have the group where when we had our little rubric, they hadn't mastered any of the skills. We were able to then as a team decide what are really truly the important skills that they need going on into third grade, and that's where that teacher focused. And so we're not going to get into all those little extras that we know they need, but they don't need to be successful in third grade, and so they're able to slow the pace down. The curriculum will teach us 3 different ways to do double-digit or triple-digit subtraction, and that teacher would just focus on one strategy for subtraction, so the students would get really good at least one way that we know that they know how to subtract. So we all had the same curriculum, but we were able to each do different activities that met the needs of our specific students in our classrooms.
And making sure that it was fitting the standards of what we need.
And so to keep everything consistent, we have our post-test in the unit is from the workbook, so from the curriculum. And it is modified to meet the needs of our students and also the standards that we need to hit as a second grade group and overall. But they're very similar. It's just using different numbers, or it might be worded in a different way, but they're all consistent. And it's very interesting because I was just grading mine and looking at their pre-test and post-test, and it's just amazing that the growth you get to see in them. So.
And some of the ways that we modify the post-test is looking at the pre-test, our curriculum has like students drawing a line from the equation to the answer, and it gets all muddled. So instead of, we remove that complication for those students that can't quite show us all the lines in the right way. Now we're just removing that aspect and just having them do the equation instead of doing fancy lines to everything. So that's really one way that we really try to modify our post-test. The data that we collect, we always summarize and share our data with each other as a team, and share and celebrate our growth, which you will see soon. And we always scan the tests so we can look back on them when we do our report cards. So we do a rubric for our report cards and grading, so we always have that data to look back on and reflect with. And we send them home to parents.
So we're going to share with you, this is what our data looks like. So we have a Google document that we keep that we all share that we can go back and look to. So we have Unit 3 is one that we just would have completed. We can't give you our Unit 4 data because we just got it done today. So this would be Unit 3. So we have our 18-19 data, and then we also we put in last year's data so you can see it works with all groups of students. Like, we've modified how we did it this year because now we have 4 teachers in our section instead of 3. It's different kids. Like, we're always modifying. What we did last year is not exactly what we've done this year, even though the same idea is there. So you can see the students never know that they're in the low, medium, or high group. They just know your math teacher is Miss Held, your math teacher is Miss Ferguson, and we're going to give you what we want. So they are never told this. This is just our teacher data. So you can see that in 17-18, the low group of students on the pretest in the first category, they did 41% of the skills. And by the post-test, they were able to get 86% for a growth of 45%. And for us, the exciting thing is seeing, especially those low and middle to low students, they're able to achieve almost at the same level as our high kids. That already came in knowing 86% of the standards. We've lessened that gap Instead of having 41% to an 86% in our class, we now have, okay, they know between 86 and 92% of the skills that they need to know for second grade. That's awesome as a teacher, to know that you don't have that as wide of a gap anymore, and that they work really hard and they feel the success. This year our data, with that low group, they started at 25%, so a different group of kids. We're still doing those same things. I had the low group both years, but I didn't do the same things I did last year because the kids are different and they need it modified in different ways. But we're still able to get that growth. We started this year actually looking at our overall growth. So pulling it back to, okay, now let's look at second grade as a whole. How are we doing? In Unit 3, we had, at the pretest, 52% of the second graders knew the skills that they needed for our geometry and measurement unit. And we can say with confidence, at the end, they now know 92% of the skills that they need to have. So then we meet again. We just finished up our Chapter 4 test. We're giving the pretest on Unit 5 tomorrow. We'll correct that on our own, and we're meeting Monday morning to analyze the data and get those Chapter 5 groups going on Monday.
So just so the board knows, this is a strategy. It's not a curriculum, it's not a program, it's just a strategy to not only support students, but to also support teachers in the process of how do we, the part I love to tell you is that this team of second grade knows the whole second grade. So when we also have a student that maybe is starting to struggle, is we have 4 perspectives of people versus a teacher feeling like, well, they only act this way for me and I have them all the time. So it really becomes that team effort. And so this team has found this to be very successful, and we have a few other teams trying some different strategies, but we wanted to highlight a little bit, like, now the thing about going into conferences, if you have a second grade student at Wyoming Elementary, not only are you going to get to go in and see how they did on the Chapter 3 test, you as a parent get to come and see the growth. A lot of times we're used to conferences where we come in and say, hey, this is what they got in this test, this is what they got in this test, this, but this team is ready to present, like, hey, your child came in at this, these are some of the strategies, and look at where they ended up. And so it's not the doom and gloom. So I can't, say enough about how hard all the staff is working at Wyoming Elementary, and a variety of them are doing different things, but we're continuing to use the PLC time that the district has given us, which is very, very important work. I mean, I'd say it's the foundation of supporting our teachers, so. We all know that starts with relationships. Doesn't matter how much you know until they know how much you care. So, I mean, that's, so we still have the PBS and all those other things going on. We presented about that before, but the big change this year is we have Rory, and actually the kids can earn badges in different areas and so if we have a guest teacher tomorrow and they do a rock star job, the teacher can go down and get a guest teacher badge where it gets to go on there outside their classroom, and you can see how proud the kids are for those different things.
I would just add real quickly that this is a clear demonstration of what we know, that focused instruction, standards, collaboration, and high-quality instruction get results. This is a great evidence of that.
Wow. I just want to add, too, that you 3 just seem so passionate about this, and that's just so exciting. And with the screen with all your detail on it, what just is so impressive is how, the high comes up, but the medium low just like blows it out of the water. And I think with math, that differentiated instruction is just so important for some of those kids at that medium low. Because my daughter was there, and it was like, oh.
And we share this with the kids. They know what their pre-test score is. They know what their post-test score is. Many of us, like, the few days before the test, we're looking at that pre-test again and saying, like, look, we know this now. Like, you had no idea how to do this. If I give this to you again, and just that confidence that gets built up through what we're doing is huge. Because if they don't believe in themselves, they're not going to do well, no matter how great the instruction is. So it's also building the confidence of kids.
And it's also very much so a growth mindset where, yep, you don't know it, but you don't know it yet. So that's what we're going to work on soon. So it's a huge impact for them.
And I think just from a new teacher's perspective in the district is having the students, I have Amy's class, some from Amy's room, some from Deidre's room and Bree's room, and it's fun for me to watch them and I create a relationship so they feel successful not only with their classroom teacher but also someone in the area too who cares about them and their learning. So, and likewise with my students as well. So,
And we switch up, like, each unit who takes what group, so it's not like all of a sudden they can figure out like, oh, I'm with Ferguson, I'm in the middle group. So we switch that up as well, but we all have our strengths. So prior to being in second grade, I was in fourth grade. So like having that fourth grade mindset of being able to do math, it's a lot easier for me to stretch that high group because I know what I'm doing. So we each take our skill set and go to what makes us work, but we also mix it up so the students don't suddenly know like that defeat of the first day of, oh, that's what group I'm in. Because we don't want it to become a track that they're in. It truly is, these are the skills you need this time. Next time it's going to be different.
Yeah, and I really impressed that, that you're sensitive to that, because I think kids innately catch on to that really quickly and they figure it out, and then it's not a positive thing, so.
My quick question was, how often do they reshuffle? I know each unit you go through it again, but realistically, how different are each cohort each time?
I had one student, specifically last year, she always comes to my mind, that one unit, she was in the high, what we would consider high group for knowing the most out of the pretest. And then with the rubric this year, we can have it do more of the skills. But then the unit after that, she was in the low group. So just making sure that we're really truly reaching their needs. And then within the unit, we do our small groups within the instruction based off of that rubric and what skills they really have already. There might be a group of 5 or 6 kids that have the skill mastered, but the rest don't. So we just try to do rotations in small groups where it's not super obvious that we're working on a specific skill again with students, but really trying to make it so we're reaching their needs versus the whole group.
So I would say, overall, if you're saying, like the groups like that move, they are not homogeneous the same every single time.
Okay.
You're gonna have, pockets of kids that are always in the high track. You're gonna have the pockets of kids that are always in the low track. But we don't look at that. We just look at, here's the skills they need. We're looking at the standards and the skills. And if you're in the same low group every time, they don't know that because they just know I'm getting what I need. And we also look at within the unit as well. We've done that. We put them where we think they fall based on what we see on their test. And then maybe the pace is too fast for them. And so we're going to say, you know what? You're going to move to Jordan's room tomorrow. And it's not seen as a bad thing. It's just her pace is a little bit slower than what my pace was. That's what that student needs. And they don't feel bad about that because they don't know what they don't know. So we've done it within the unit for those specific cases where it's just they're not feeling or seeing the success that we want them. And so we know we have to just differentiate that through there, and we can move on any way that we need.
And one of the things that we make sure we look at too is that there's still a range. So when you talk about the kids who are in this group, there's still this range. It's kind of like going to watch in-house basketball. You go in there, they're in in-house basketball, but boys, there's still a range. They're not in traveling or they're not in the jazz band, but there's still this range. And so that's the part that's exciting for us because they're still learning from each other. So a lot of research, when you don't understand the flexible grouping that we're doing, you think that it's, oh, the kids are the low kids living out as like the sparrow, and then there's the eagles, but it's not that way. And the part that they didn't get into depth with is the formative assessments that they're doing every single day at the end of the lesson to see which student is grasping the learning versus talking about teaching. So we're really putting the focus on what did you learn today, and then that feedback for the teacher on how the lesson went. So I know you guys have a lot more stuff. Let's take a quick selfie.
I gotta take yours.
Oh.
I know,
It's gonna go
tweet
it.
it.
Take a picture.
I'm gonna tweet you back.
Wait a second.
Oh,
This is rare.
it's rare.
Not for us.
On our phones and coordinated.
There we go.
See if you get in there.
Oh, you get in there.
Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming out tonight. I mean, it's really heartwarming for us to see this kind of work going on in our elementaries, and just a big thank you because it makes such a difference in these kids' lives to get that kind of jump start and that kind of really special attention. And so thank you. We really appreciate your work.
thank you.
And I
Yep,
appreciate
nice
the
job.
enthusiasm. You guys are very enthusiastic.
All right, positive happenings. Member Corcoran, you want to start?
I'm just trying to think what I had. What did I do?
What day is it?
What did we do, Gail?
It was February.
What did we do, Julie?
Yeah,
Those Arctic days.
Pardon me?
Arctic days.
Well, we did, yeah, lot of snow blowing, is that positive? No, probably not. Yeah,
More to
I don't think I
come.
attended anything this past month.
More to come.
Okay.
All right.
Did you?
Let's see, on the 18th of February, I had a meeting with the Community Ed Advisory Council, which was part of it. That was a great meeting as usual. Thank you, Tracy. On the 26th of February, I had the meeting with Superintendent Massey to review the progress of the levy and the staff levy recommendations. And that was a very, very good meeting, very productive meeting. On March 7th, actually today, this morning, I went over and met with Columbus Elementary, which is one of the schools that I'm a partner with, and I met with Will Fox, who I've met with a couple of times, and had the chance to tour the school and see a little bit about what they're doing over at Columbus Elementary, which was great. I also had the opportunity on the 1st of March to attend a MSBA negotiations seminar, which I'll come back to as part of my reporting later. And also I had, I somewhat unfortunately, I guess, I don't know if it's a positive happening, but I had the chance to attend the senior night at the Forest Lake boys basketball tournament. Unfortunately, we lost to White Bear Lake, which was just tough to take. They lost the game, and then, as you probably know, the boys all went down to Duluth and participated in the sections and lost their first game to Duluth East. So again, unfortunately, it was a tough year, I think, for boys basketball this year, but they held it up and they did okay, and they at least made it to the sectionals. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you.
So I can start with my commuting to Lino, because I went to their business day, which is a really great little program where they kind of present commerce and sell things to the parents. And then I went to the science fair for the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, so science and then an invention fair. I was a volunteer reader and had a lot of fun with a bunch of kids for a couple hours. I went to their PTO meeting. Then here at the district office, went to the committee meetings, which we'll get to later. I went to the Rename the Southwest meeting twice, so that was fun. Gail and I went. I went to the Little Mermaid, so the CPA Little Mermaid, and I also went to Beauty and the Beast, to be fair to all the kids, so to saw both performances. And then this week I went to the Capitol. She left, Amy, so the other 2nd grade teacher who was here, she went to the Capitol with us. And then I had a fun budget meeting, which I had to zip my lip and not say all the cool things. So I can't wait till that gets to be. And that's it.
All right.
Short month, Arctic days. Stay
That's
home.
it? That's a lot.
I did solo. I also got stuck in my driveway 4 times.
At your new house?
Yes. It drifts. I didn't know about drifts.
Remember Tyson?
I as well went to the Southwest renaming meetings where we had lots of great diversity of thought, and went for a second meeting and got it all dialed in. It was great to be with that group. I went to the Black experience at the high school that the students hosted for Black History Month, and that was a really impressive event put on by those students, and I really enjoyed that. I also went to the state wrestling championship and saw Derek Cardinal win his match at the championship night, so that was really, really exciting. Also, I got JP's update and was going to go to the PTO meeting at Flom's, and he said, don't do that because we're not having one, but come to the Madagascar, the middle school musical, and that was really cute. Got there a little late, but saw the most of it. It was very nice. The Festival of Cultures is coming up. It's already the 14th annual.
Wow.
So that is a
Wow.
very impressive
That's
event that we put on for 14 years. That's just a long running, and it just gets crowded and grows more every year. So that's about it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And for me, I also went and saw The Little Mermaid and knew all the words, so that was fun. And visited the Scandia Arts and Academic Fair, which is always, my friend Scott and I spent about an hour walking up and down and looking at it all. So, all right. Reports, workshops or conferences, any reports on that?
I had just a short report, but I had the opportunity to attend the Minnesota State the School Board Association seminar, negotiations,
Mhm.
which I thought was pretty interesting, and they talked about negotiations overview with a little bit about collective bargaining, which I'm not very familiar with, and so I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of get into that and
Yeah.
understand that a little better.
Last week.
They talked about insurance and the health insurance market and the trends that are happening out there, which I also found to be pretty insightful. Negotiations, potpourri, which was concerns and points of interest around bargaining itself, which I thought was interesting, and master agreements and words that matter within those agreements and things. So even though I don't expect to be on a negotiating committee necessarily, I found it helpful to just get that back.
It kind of lines up with what we've been talking about in
Right.
finance as well, with
Right.
healthcare.
Yeah.
All right, communication committee, Member Luther?
Be quick.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you have something for conference?
I must have
MSBA.
missed the MSBA
Yeah.
update because I
Yeah,
wasn't
that was
able to
last-
go, but.
Yeah.
we
Oh,
have
okay,
that.
okay. It just looked like I had forgotten, so.
No,
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
Communications committee, so Gail and I sit on that, so we split these things up, but I don't want to steal the thunder. We talked a lot about renaming Southwest, so that gets to be read out. Is it on the agenda? Yes?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
We had a discussion of community ed and what's going on with the catalog and different marketing, and then the ongoing quest to refine the communications plan for the district and what direction marketing-wise we should and are going.
All right. 916, Member Olson's not here tonight. Policy committee, who's on policy committee besides?
Jill?
Okay. Equity Alliance, I'm the new Equity Alliance representative, and I went to my first meeting. Well, the first meeting was actually snowed out, so we went a week later or whatever, but seems like a really nice group, and I'm just getting up to speed on what they do, and yeah, we talked about some of the programs that they have, so I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be fun and useful because our district uses a number of those services. Let's see, curriculum instruction and equity, Member Tyson?
Yes, we had a great report from, at the committee night. Looking over the Equity Pathways report. If anybody wants to see it, it's got great information. But it's with Equal Opportunity Schools, and it's a partnership model with consultative, I don't know if that's the right word, but they're consultants. And it's collaborative with school districts to increase equitable enrollment in AP classes. So it was a great report. I think it's a really good step in the right direction for our district. We also got an equity infusion update that Marceline DeBose, who's worked with our district for many years, she does a 3.5 hour trainings with staff, and how those are wonderful trainings, but they could always stand to be a little bit longer or more frequent. And the other thing we talked about was the upcoming Festival of Nations, as well as family support resources. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Staff welfare, Member Corcoran.
Well, we talked about the budget program development with Dr. Massey, talking about, which we'll be discussing at our April meeting. Whatever strategic planning, we're putting that off right now due to the fact that we're working on our budget. Not sure if we're going to be going with all that yet, so that was kind of talked about as being down the road. Enrollment, kind of get an update on enrollment and talking about the committee that's been formed, looking at the future enrollment, trying to keep enrollment in our district. And legislative update, which I know that of course has always been talked about, and no final numbers yet. Do we have final numbers? Is
Nope.
it 2? We don't have, yeah, but we're always hoping.
Yep.
We're hopeful.
That's right.
All right. Buildings and Ground, Member Peterson's not here tonight. Finance Committee, Member Gatto?
I did not have the opportunity to attend the committee meeting, but Larry, and thank you, Larry, for sending me the agenda and everything behind it so I could review it.
Mhm.
And the agenda that I received, we talked about fiscal year 19 budget status, a legislative update which included a note about the governor's budget and what he's thinking, which is great. The fiscal year 20 budget status of the self-funded insurance. Julie was there, and so Julie could cover maybe a couple.
Well, we talked about, self-funded insurances is going well compared to the last year's, keeping the same rates, really keeping it with our claims. We're really in a good place as of last year with no increases. And we also talked about Jackie coming to do a revenue study from MMKR, and that's in next month, I believe. And let's see. And then we also started negotiation with classified staff and looking at doing food service and janitorial. And also talked about transportation funding, how we're really hoping to get that pushed through and how desperately that we need that.
Perfect. All right. And City of Forest Lake, Member Caddo?
City of Forest Lake, one thing to report, on February 19th, as I mentioned in one of our last meetings, they had a special meeting of the City of Forest Lake Council. They interviewed 8 candidates for the open seat on the City Council. Paul Gerard was chosen, if you don't already know that. He was selected as the new board member for the community. And February 25th, Gerard was actually sworn in, and what I found interesting about it was 2 things. One, he was the current chair of the planning committee, so he's got a lot of background, years and years of background in planning for the City of Forest Lake. But what he mentioned in his comments, and it was quoted as, we have a vibrant community with a variety of housing options. And what's important to us, I think, is he also said an above-average school district, which said to me that at least he's aware of the school district and he wants to work with us, I would assume, and now we can hold him in that statement.
All right.
And he's a
I look
great
forward
guy.
to working
He's a
with
good
him.
guy.
I know him, he's very pro our district, so.
All right.
Above average.
Thank you. And Reshaping Opportunities for Success 2015-2020, Director Martini. And before you start, Member Corcoran and Member Kettle were talking about the Finance Committee, and we talked about healthcare costs.
Yes.
And what is it, 5 or 6 years that we've held healthcare costs flat, even though we have a very high-quality program for our employees. And I just wanted to thank you and your staff for the work you do on that. It's just been wonderful the way you've been able to keep a really high-quality plan, but keep our costs on track. And so, just a little.
Can I add a comment
Thumbs
to
up.
that?
Yeah.
I'll add a footnote to what you just said. In the MSBA negotiation seminar that I went to, they spent quite a bit of time talking about insurance, and they had an insurance person actually come in and talk about what's going on. And it opened my eyes, at least, to what we do, even though I'm really new to this. I mean, what this guy was talking about is all the problems and all the opportunities that they have on that end, and I don't hear that on ours, so I commend Larry for that.
And we are very grateful for that.
We are very grateful.
And my suspicion is that they talked about a trend being somewhere between 8 and 12%, and our trend is 0.
0. 5 years. No increase in premiums.
All right, continue.
Not just to one person, it's always a collaborative effort. We've got an employee benefits committee, and we've got wonderful consultants and other folks that work with us. And to shift gears and talk about consultants, we actually consider Jake from the Environmental Club one of our consultants, because he mentioned B3 benchmarking. We put in all our utility data into this database, all public facilities have to use this in the state of Minnesota. And he identified, through his research for this application, identified some anomalies back in 14-15. Worked with Mr. Schwartz to correct those, and found we were even more efficient than we had thought. So hats off to Jake and Devin for instructing him as he goes through his academic career here.
Wow.
Cool.
This is really exciting to share with you, because there are many things coming together at not only Southwest but Linwood, because they've had the benefit of being able to work throughout the school year. And again, just I want to give a pitch out there to KOMA Architects across Anderson, Martin Pesner Engineering, DLR Architects and ICS in the secondary. When we go to work with the Central Learning Center and what we might be doing there, we're going to use the elementary team. We think that they've really performed exceptionally well with those super old facilities. And so we're excited to move forward with that. Here's a picture of some new classroom casework at Linwood. And so we've got several rooms in that connecting link that are completed at this point in time. They still have the protection on the floor because they're working up on the ceiling grid. And if you look to the north at the far end of that hallway, not the hallway, but inside those classrooms, you can see the connecting doors without the connecting door frames without the doors yet. And those are the wall talkers on each of those classroom walls. So those are writable surfaces above and beyond the whiteboards where the screen image that you saw in the last picture. And I couldn't resist taking a picture of the lift because I like cranes and lifts, and this was right out the window of that classroom. and it was a beautiful day today out there. Tim got a picture of the penthouse. This is actually an older shot, but the connecting link is right under that yellow. So the office area is in the front, the classrooms I photographed, they're in the back there. And then here are some shots of ductwork in the penthouse there. All the orange colored ductwork is returns, and then the green and blue are supply, blue being air conditioning supply, green being heat supply. So pretty neat stuff. Similar setup over at Lino Lakes, new HVAC equipment on the far end of that facility. And now we go over to what will be, you'll hear something from Mr. McKinnon this evening on renaming of this facility. And so this is the front where entrance 1 and 2 are located. That will actually be reversed. Entrance 1 is on the right-hand side today. Entrance 2 is on the left-hand side, but that's going to get reversed. And Mr. Brockman was able to take this shot. This is that secure entrance where door 2 is currently labeled, which will become door 1. So they're working on that. And they've got a lot of completion now in the early childhood area. This is the hallway, so we've already got paint and ceiling grid in. These are actually real close to finished classrooms. And here's where the windows are going to go in. You've probably seen the outline if you've driven by this facility on the north side, or if you've looked across that new parking lot area from the apartments off 11th, and if you've looked to the east, this is where the new windows are going in. Some more early childhood spaces, carpets down, carpets on the floor there. And I couldn't help but finish.
That. Yay, I love that, Larry. Good job.
This is Mr. Brockman's photography. And again, daytime, and you might be saying to yourself, so what's next? Well, of course, this summer we're going to be finishing those 2 facilities we just reviewed and getting started with Wyoming. During spring break, they'll actually work on Wyoming in some of the hallways and get a little bit of HVAC work while kids are away and staff are. So that's really exciting. Questions, comments?
I just have one comment. I would challenge anybody to miss that sign.
Well, I do need
It's
to,
beautiful.
there's a couple of scrub trees we're going to eliminate, and we're going to do 2-for-1 planting on the site, but so that you have a little bit better visual off of 97, because we don't want anybody to miss it.
That is outstanding.
Well, we saw it during the day, and I thought it looked awesome, but then I didn't know it lit up. And then I was driving, I'm like, oh my gosh. It was like, my response was like, if you drive by and don't see that, then there's a problem, because it's huge.
It's huge. I went around the roundabout and had to go by it again. It was just so incredible
And hearing
to see.
positive comments from a lot of people about how
people.
great it looks.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm just excited to share these with you. It's something I'm involved with, Mr. Brockman is involved with, but Dr. Massey has been instrumental in all of the instructional design throughout all of our facilities. So we're all excited to be part of this.
Yep.
yeah, it's wonderful.
Oh, and that first walkthrough in Southwest, it's just got to be, it's transformative. It's got to just look completely like
So
nothing it did before.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Superintendent's report, Dr. Massey.
Thank you very much. Kurt had to slip out, but certainly a nod to Kurt Slater at Wyoming and his leadership and his second grade team, but staff across the board and frankly across the district doing amazing things in many different ways. Tonight our thoughts and prayers are with Jeremy Swenson, one of our teachers who actually is on leave right now serving at Education Minnesota. Tonight there's a service for his wife who passed away recently, and young family, and Jeremy is one of ours, and our thoughts and prayers go to Jeremy and his family. Additionally, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of 2015 Forest Lake High School graduate Meg Maurer, who passed away Tuesday from a tragic accident in Mississippi. Meg was a very talented student involved in many, many things when she was here, and a real star from everything we see and read at Tulane University. So our thoughts are with her family as well. Switching gears, congratulations to our state tournament teams. We'll see them in April, all of them. We still are in competition. In fact, as we speak, I'm hoping our girls are up in their section final up in Princeton against Cambridge. So hopefully we'll have a state tournament team with our girls basketball team. But as mentioned, wrestling was in the state tournament since the first time since somewhere in the mid-1990s. We're in a very tough section, so congratulations to Joe Kuncher and his team and the individual participants there. Great progress and sticking with a very intensive game plan there. Our boys swimming and diving team at the state tournament, and individuals there. Boys and girls Nordic team and their state finishes. Individual participants in gymnastics, alpine, and DECA, debate. So a very active and busy summer under Mike Hennon's leadership and as our activities director, and Jim Caldwell on the staff at the high school. As mentioned from member Luthner, we had our Schools for Equity and Education Lobbying Day at the Capitol on Tuesday. We visited with a number of our representatives, including Senator Benson and Senator Chamberlain and Housley, and Representatives Detmer, Barr, and Runbeck. We had a great tour throughout the Capitol. We had a couple of teachers join us, Member Luthner, as I mentioned, Larry Martini and myself. So we had a parent from Scandia as well, Tammy Anderson. So a great day down there, and I would just nudge all of us in the community and throughout the board to continue to keep our issues in the forefront of our legislators. They are now putting, with the budget forecast out there, they're putting the budgets together. This is the time that they're going to be working on putting the whole package together. Larry and I have, by next Tuesday, we'll have visited with all of the different committees, 5 in all, between the Senate and the House on our transportation bill. We'll be at education policy on Tuesday on our transportation bill. We keep our fingers crossed as we ask for increases in transportation sparsity. And we'll continue our efforts around per-pupil funding, cross-subsidy with special education, supports for mental health, some real paramount issues for not only our district, but districts throughout the state.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
One question.
Yes.
If I understood it right, reading the press recently, the budget has now, the biennial budget or whatever, has now been reduced slightly over what they originally projected.
Yeah,
And
the
so
state
that puts
surplus.
even more emphasis on us following up on this, because there's going to be less money.
Yeah, the good news is there's still a surplus. The surplus in November was estimated at $1.5 billion. It's been downgraded to an estimated surplus of $1 billion. So they have less one-time money to work with, so they're concerned about ongoing commitments and then using these dollars for kind of one-time expenditures. But education needs, and interestingly, the education support funding from the state is not indexed to inflation. So we get what we get from one year to the next, but it's not, there's not an automatic inflationary index. So when we get 2% or 3% from the state, essentially, they're putting inflation on the per pupil formula. We're not making up ground on the deficit that we have incurred over the number of years.
Yeah.
And the governor's budget has a first year increase on the per pupil formula of 3% and a 2% increase on the second year. That barely keeps pace with inflation and does not make up ground. So that's the minimum that we need, and they'll need pressure to pull through on that.
Yeah.
Can I give one comment, Rob, about, I just want to give a shout out to our new activities director, Mike Hennon. I've heard so many positive comments from players and parents just saying that he's just right down in there, like on the floor right next to him, cheering him on, and that the positivity that comes from him is just amazing for the students and the parents, so.
Nice.
And when he's bored with activities, he's taken calculus tests along with the AP calculus kids. He was a calc teacher in his previous district, so he's involved in many ways. You're right.
Wow.
Yeah, just for fun.
Fun for punishment.
Yep.
Punishment for me.
All right, consent agenda. Are there any items people would like pulled? If not, do we have a motion to approve 7.1 through 7.4?
So
Second?
Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Consent agenda is approved. Agenda item 8, donations. Member Ketto.
For donations this month, we had a total of $232.68. A trumpet, a Bach trumpet, was donated by Mary Zangen from Wyoming to the Columbus Elementary Band at a value of $175. There were school and office supplies provided by Office Depot to Scandia Elementary for students and staff, which was valued at $1,100. There were $3,477.06 donated by the Red Line Club of Forest Lake to the Forest Lake High School girls hockey team for payment of one assistant coach. There was another $70 donated by the same organization to the Forest Lake girls hockey team for payment toward a coach bus trip to Wayzata. $500 were donated by Amber Setter and Todd Kirkow of Stacy to the Forest Lake High School Rangers, helping Rangers to help students in need pay for AP test exams. That one hit me. I gotta admit, I gotta put a footnote on that one. That one hit me a lot. $500 were donated by two people to help students pay for AP test exams that couldn't do it. $4,375.48 were the proceeds from a turkey bingo at Wyoming Elementary that were given by the PTA to the Wyoming Elementary School. Props for the 5th grade concert and updating classroom school boards were given by the Scandia PTO to the Scandia Elementary at a value of $170. $501.40 were donated. The boys swim and dive team were given by the team to the Forest Lake High School boys swim for a partial payment for a coach bus trip to Duluth. $894.01 were given by the Blue Line Club to the Forest Lake High School boys hockey for payment for two different coach bus trips. $678.80 were given by the Fast Break Booster Club of Forest Lake to the Forest Lake High School girls basketball team for partial payment toward a coach bus trip. Frames and ID wording, mirrors, and printing and photos were donated by the Scandia PTO to Scandia Elementary to decorate the newly updated building. That was valued at $890.93. And last but hardly least, $400 were donated by the Hugo American Legion to the Forest Lake FFA for student activities. $200 were dated back in December, another $200 were given in February. And again, that was for a total for this month of $13,232.68. We want to thank all those organizations for their support of our schools and our organizations.
All right, and with that, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution accepting donations?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you for all those groups. That money is oftentimes hard-earned, and parents chipping in when they see a need. We can't say thank you enough for everybody who gives a little or gives a lot, so thank you.
Well said. Very appreciative.
And with that, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right, thank you. We don't have any old business. We must be getting slothful in the long winter. But new business, we got a full agenda. So 10-1, the first reading of the renaming of the Southwest Building.
And we have Director Corey McKinnon, who led that effort and led that charge with some committee members around the table with him. So Corey, take it away.
Yeah, it's always difficult to follow those donations. It's amazing.
Beautiful.
Last check here, our girls are up 46-38 with 11 minutes to go.
There we go. Thank you
They're
very much.
good.
So
They're
we'll
a
keep
win.
the Twitter machine here going.
Yeah, keep it going. Keep updating us.
It's hard to believe, as Director Martini showed the 2015-2020 reshaping opportunities for success. That was just partway into its inception when I started, and 2020 is not far away. And there was only one slide with remaining projects. With the transition to the building that's currently named Southwest, with the groups coming over from what's now at the Central Learning Center. And so part of that is looking at Southwest Junior High not being the name for the building, or potentially it would have been, but going through a process that we would have employed to make sure that the name that we land on is one that's fitting for the building. And so prior to that, the principal of the then ALC program, Kelly Lefine, went through a renaming process for what landed on the Forest Lake Area Community School, and not wanting to convolute that process, complicate it, I decided it was best to wait on that, as Dr. Massey asked me to take on and facilitate the process of renaming the building. So once that process came to fruition, then it was time to begin this process. So the first thing that I did is I just put a Google form out to anyone and everyone who wanted to fill out a Google form. And really there was just two basic items on there. Again, wanting to keep this simple yet meaningful. And the first one was, what considerations should we be thinking about once a committee is formed? And what possible names might there be? And it was great because there were a number of submissions. There was upwards of over 60 submissions with only a couple tongue-in-cheek submissions, which actually I don't mind. I think it keeps humor in the room. I still kept those in the group, presented them to the committee. We enjoyed some of those. I was disappointed that the Corey McKinnon Academics and Arts Center didn't make the list, but we still found a way to proceed. So
that was a submission from your wife, I'm sure.
That's why it was not on there. So from there, it was the development of a committee. And so what I wanted to do is reach out to all of the different cross-sections and touch points that will be coming into this building. And unlike a typical school building, we know that what we see at the CLC and what will be at the new building has a lot of different programs, a lot of varied programs in there. And so there was really kind of a come one, come all to be a part of the process, and I'm very fortunate that our committee wasn't large in number, although it could have been. It's just by nature of those who stepped up. But we had a really good cross-section representation at the table and voices to be heard, from the principal of our Forest Lake Area Community School, Jen Olson from our aquatic supervisor. We had board member Tyson and board member Luthner there from a board representation standpoint. We had folks from community education there. So it was just really good to get a lot of different perspectives. And when we first met and we started getting conversation going, there were a lot of different perspectives at the table, and some of which I'll share here. So what we did is we met on February 11th. We did some introductions so we all knew who was in the room. We walked through some collective commitments, making sure that everybody knew that it was appropriate for voices to be heard, to be respectful. We wanted to make sure that everybody was engaged in the conversation, be listening, and really be looking at this not just from within ourselves, but from outside of ourselves, as well as not just a today building, but a building for as far as going forward as we can imagine, because we never know what will end up in that building. And use humor when appropriate, and there were times where we had some really good laughs. But kind of that second to the last bullet point and the last bullet point I thought were some of the most significant ones. Say it in the room, not the meeting in the after meeting, that make sure we have enough trust in the room to really say this is the time. We want to vet this process out. We want to make sure we consider every angle possible and everybody's voices are heard and reheard again if need be. And we're guided by the purpose and mission and vision of the Forest Lake Area School District. So we divided into three groups, and really each group was tasked with two things. One, look over what considerations should we be thinking about, and the prospective names. And so really the considerations, these were some of the recurring themes. There were a lot of considerations, but these were the recurring themes that came up. And you'll notice some of these recurring themes are contradicting each other, but that they were recurring themes. So things like represent the community, tie into old names, not another Forest Lake area. Do we want it to be a link to Southwest? We don't want it to be a link to Southwest. We want it to represent Forest Lake area. We want to keep clarity, not confusion. That was a big one coming out of the CLC, and we had the ALC program there. A lot of times those names were used interchangeably, but they're not the same things. So keeping that clarity and confusion to a minimum. Equity to Century, knowing that Century went through a renaming process and landed on Forest Lake Area Middle School. One of the things that came up in the Google forums a few different times was, if we do keep it Southwest, is that will the kids that were there, or some of the former folks that were in that building, feel slighted or advantaged as opposed to the Century students who had their whole building renamed, some of those things. So these were all of the considerations, and not to say that a name will be able to take on all of these, because like I said, some of them contradict each other, but making sure that we're guided not just by our own personal values, but we're also guided by the community and the community input through the considerations that other people had suggested we'd be thinking about. So from there, I asked each group to come up with 3 or 5, 3 to 5. I just called them propers and identifiers. So for example, Forest Lake area would be a proper, kind of like its name, and the identifier being what it is. So Forest Lake area, middle school would be the identifier. Wyoming proper, elementary, the identifier. And coming up, so we separated those out. So each group came up with those, and these were sort of the list that each group came up with. There were quite a few crossovers, but we had Rangers, Southwest, Forest Lake area, South Central, FLA, Rangers, Central name, a name meaning a name of a person. There weren't really any specific names that were called to mind, but do we want to be thinking about the name of a person? And then the identifiers here: Lifelong Learning Center, Educational Center, Learning Center, Service Center, Resource Center, and Education Center. And so from there we had some discussion about do these align with our considerations? How do they sound together? We want to be mindful of the acronyms that maybe come out of these, and the FLAMS is now FLAMS. Do we want to be thinking about that? How is that going to sound with whatever name we land on? And then we basically went through a voting process. And so each person was given 5 stickers to go highlight their high 5, and we whittled it down to a final 4 and a final 3 on each side, and got it down to these 4 choices of Forest Lake area: FLA, Southwest Ranger, and Education Center, Lifelong Learning Center, and Learning Center. Again, further consideration, another round of votes with 2 red stickers, and we had it down to Forest Lake area and Southwest, Education Center, and Lifelong Learning Center. You'll notice that Learning Center, like the ALC Learning Center, came off the table. One of the reasons that did, and part of our conversation was, if we go with Forest Lake area and then Learning Center, then it may be FLALC, and there's the possible reference. The building's just going to be now called again the ALC, and might that undo some of the work that Kelly did with Forest Lake Area Community School, wanting to rebrand that. So we decided that it would be best for that to come off the table, and we landed on these 2 pieces for our final vote. And so we had further discussion, and our conversations were really good and really meaningful. I think back to one of our first, when we just looked at the considerations, and we had, polarizing conversations, which I told the group, that's great. We don't want consensus right now. We want to make sure we're attacking this from every possible angle, and it's good to have the opposing viewpoints heard, because that when we land on a name, we'll know that we landed on something that is a best fit for this future building. So then the last thing we did is we took those, we brought it down to a vote, and this is where we landed on as of that day, the Forest Lake Area Education Center. Keeping in line with the Forest Lake Area High School, Forest Lake Area Middle School, Forest Lake Area Education Center, and we had some follow-up conversation after we got here, FLAEC, about marketing and wanting to make sure that people know that it's our building, that they know where they're coming from, not just from within, but from without. How does that play into the role of the enrollment task force, of our communications plan? We had some really good conversation. And one of the key pieces that came out of that conversation is the emphasis of the word area, and wanting to make sure that it's all of our community's building. It's a school district building. It's not just the Forest Lake building. It's just as much Forest Lakes, as much as Scandia, Columbus, Lino Lakes, Linwood, Wyoming, all of our surrounding communities. And so we left the meeting at that. So enter the next day. And I know you're going to be hard-pressed to believe this, but it was snowing. And I was running behind on the roads, of course, driving slow, and I put on my Google Maps, how long is it going to take me to get to the district office? And I came up with this, and this is what popped up on my Google Maps. Forest Lake Area Schools, district office. And it hit me right there. We never, and just part of our conversation, it was really a whole, it was, whether we passed over it, just the nature of the directions we went and all of our considerations, never talked about Forest Lake Area Schools Education Center. So thinking, well, maybe we want to be thinking about that. So I checked in with a couple of our other committee members, and then also had some really good follow-up feedback from board member Luthner about some other considerations that when you leave a meeting, you think further on it, and it's very different, kind of like I had. It's not I didn't say it in the room, it's I thought further of this because of the process we went through. And not wanting to be stubborn about our process and say, nope, we're done, we had our meeting. To me, this is a big deal. This is very important. This is the naming of a building that we're going to put a big sign on. Maybe not quite as elaborate yet as the sign we just saw, but someday. We want to make sure that we get it right. And so, thinking about how the district office is located, I did a Google search of our district office. It comes up Forest Lake Area Schools District Office. Looking at the side of the building, that's what we see. Obviously, we have that beautiful sign that's there. And then I decided actually just to go on my Google Calendar and just type in Forest Lake Area in SC and see what else pops up. We have Forest Lake Area Schools, at this time, the Central Learning Center, Forest Lake Area Schools District Office, the transportation, and maintenance comes up. And then you start getting into like the other school buildings. So after checking with a few committee members, I found it appropriate to call another meeting to say, okay, we've had a chance to digest this process. This is where we landed. Are we really there? And if everybody looks at me and says, we're there, we're good, let's go, then we're there. And we actually engaged in some really good conversation around this topic and its alignment with marketing, our considerations, where we want it to go, and basically came up with Forest Lake Area Schools Education Center. And working with the marketing and communications folks within our district, I fully envision that when we have the signage on the sign of the building, we'll be calling it out the Education Center. And think of folks that when they have meetings over at that building, they'll say, okay, well, we're going to meet at the Education Center, or we're going to meet at the over at the Ed Center, as opposed to the FLAEC or whatever else it might be. But yet, having Forest Lake Area Schools, which really represents our district and all that our district encompasses. So there's no action tonight needed. This is on the table for a first reading, but the committee's recommendation for the proposed new name of the building would be the Forest Lake Area Schools Education Center. So.
So everything had center on it. What was the thought behind having center as opposed to something like hub? Was there a discussion around that?
When we talked about hub, center came up a lot as opposed to hub, just as far as how it sounds. Thinking that when someone from Champlain Park might have a basketball game at one of the gyms that will remain over there, how is that going to come up on their calendar? Well, we're going to the Forest Lake Area Hub or the Forest Lake Area School Education Hub. It just seemed to flow more naturally, Education Center. But yeah, we talked about a lot of things. We talked about lifelong learning center. We know that. This we have from, as someone in the room said, we have from cradle to the grave in this building, from early childhood all the way through adults and senior programming and community ed. Yep, and so. But even there, it was recognized that sometimes when you think of lifelong learning, while it does mean from birth until death, it still kind of connotates an adult theme to it, and so that's why we shied away from that topic. What was great about our process is with every name and every idea we discuss rationale, and we discuss some really good meat and potatoes behind it to figure out how does this play in terms of its meaning by why we got to where we got.
All right. Questions? Go ahead.
I have a plan, or a question for Larry. It's like, so this would be like the main building name, and each entrance gonna have the name of the program they're walking into?
Actually, Mr. McKinnon's involved.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I'd be happy to answer that. Yes.
I guess I was confused about renaming the ALC. I thought that was the in my mind, then I'm like, well, why are we renaming a building when we already renamed the school?
It's a great question. It's a great question.
I was really confused. I'm like, aren't we done with that already? That wasn't in my mind.
Yep, that's.
So when I got the email, I was like,
and you're not the only one who has asked that question.
Totally
that came up at just a
understand.
recent staff meeting too.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the name of the building, the brick
itself.
and mortars, the
Right.
Forest Lake Area
Okay.
Forest Lake Area Schools Education Center.
Okay.
Located above door what will be the new door 1, will have the Forest Lake Area Community School. That will be one program within the building. Entering through the doors where our offices will be community education. We'll have early childhood program above their door, and then the community pool above its door. So there will be different. There's not really although they have to be numbered 1 through I think it's 16 for safety purposes and by code. We don't have necessarily a main entrance to the building. We have multiple main entrances depending upon what building or what part of the building you're going into. So called out on the side of the building like that's faces Target, which someone suggested, I think, after the meeting that maybe it should just be called the Building by Target, but we'll have Education Center with Forest Lake Area Schools either above or below it, much like we do here for the district office. And then, yeah, we'll have each of those programs listed above the entrance for their doors.
Yeah, well, that's what so if someone looks for an address, that's gonna pop up as being part of that building then, or is it
Correct.
gonna be referenced all separate? I'm just curious how people are gonna look it up.
Yeah, so like if you look up community education, it will be, its address will be where that address is in the Forest Lake Area Education Center. Yeah.
Very neat. Yeah, okay.
Forest Lake Area Schools Education Center. Any other questions?
No, but just kudos to Corey. He did an awesome job. It was well thought out and organized and a really good process to go through.
Oh, it was my pleasure. It was a great group, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your perspectives from the board. We had a really dynamic group and a lot of strong opinions in the room, which is, to me, that's the best way to get to where we're going to get to. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great job. No, it's great.
All right, 10.2, first reading of the school board member reimbursement guidelines policy 103A.
And the purpose of this policy is to consider reimbursement guidelines for expenses incurred in travel for school board members to represent the school district as a school board member. And the noted change here is related to the representatives serving different committees. We're eliminating ties, as ties no longer exists. So that's a strike in the policy. And we're also identifying from a previous conversation at a previous board meeting, the recommendation to add for the vice president, that a stipend for the vice president as well as the other office positions around the board. Adding a vice president stipend of $200 per year. So those are added changes and the deletion of ties.
All right, 10.3, first reading of field trips and student travel policy 606.
The purpose of this policy is to identify the requirements surrounding a school-sponsored trip and outline the general processes to be followed for consideration and approval of trips and requests. And really, the only change here is referencing the actual forms that a trip chaperone needs to complete for the district. We have spent a lot of time updating those processes, and in doing that, we realized that those forms are actually processes to meet the requirements of the policy. So we need some fluidity in how those forms work for us. We change components of those along the way. And we really can't be waiting for the policy to come up on an annual basis to be drafting those forms. And quite honestly, we don't think they belong under policy as much as procedures. So we're removing the actual forms that the chaperones would fill out to gain permission for those trips.
All right. 10.4, first reading of the equal employment opportunity policy 412.
And the purpose of this policy is to provide equal employment opportunity for all applicants for school district employment and school district employees. Consistent with other policies, we are including now and adding to this policy a reference including gender identity and expression as part of the different groups that this policy is identifying and identified for. And we are also striking from this policy language and directing anybody that has an interest or a concern about this policy to direct those questions to the Director of Administration and Human Resources. We did have a question along the way from a board member regarding how somebody might file a complaint, if you will, on this, against the district related to this. And a complaint is actually covered under policy 425, the harassment and violence policy. So that policy in particular spells out the grievance process that somebody may have if they have a grievance against the district related to employment practice.
Okay. 10.5, first reading of the Equal Educational Opportunity Policy 535.
And the purpose of this policy is to ensure that equal education opportunities are provided for all students of the school district. And like the previous policy, we're including the language of gender identity and expression. And that's recommended language from the Minnesota Human Rights Act. And so we're following the recommendations of the Human Rights Act on that.
Okay. 10.6, first reading of the use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove students with IEPs from school grounds, policy 544.
And the purpose of this policy is to describe the appropriate use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove, if necessary, a student with an individual education program, an IEP, from school grounds. And the specific changes to this policy are related to physical holds of students that may be necessitated or necessary from time to time. I'll just read for the benefit of our consideration here what we're looking for here. Physical hold as defined by Minnesota statute that restricts or impairs a child's ability to breathe. What we're adding here is restricts or impairs a child's ability to communicate distress, places pressure or weight on a child's head or throat, neck, chest, lungs, sternum, diaphragm, back, or abdomen, or results in straddling a child's torso. So that would be added language per recommendations from the Minnesota School Boards Association.
Okay. 10.7, new course proposal, AP Computer Science Principles AB.
And Director of Teaching and Learning, Diane Georgie, will walk us through these next two policies on new course proposals.
This course proposal for AP Computer Science Principles really comes out of the work of the Equal Opportunity Schools that they've been doing with our high school that you heard Member Tyson mentioning previously. One of the pieces of data that came out of the survey that they gave to our students was that we have a lot of students interested in computer science, especially ones who may not have ever taken an AP course before. And that's what Equal Opportunity Schools is helping us with, is to identify students who may meet the criteria, but for some reason or another just have never felt that they were able to take one of those courses. So by adding this course in time for next year's registration, or for next fall, we are able to individually invite some of these students to see if this might be that first opportunity for them. AP Computer Science Principles was developed by College Board just in recent years, and they have recommended this as a course that's very accessible for not only 11th and 12th graders, but 9th and 10th graders as well. So this will really provide an AP opportunity for as a gateway course for those students who want to take it in a younger grade.
All right, and then 10.8, Ranger Connect.
And Ranger Connect has been in place at the high school for several years now, but over the last few years, there have been a lot more requirements in place for our high school to really focus on college and career readiness. So we have built into the Ranger Connect time many expectations for students, and we're finding at this point they are doing approximately a quarter credit worth of work each year. So now with the 9th graders at the high school, we felt with a quarter credit each year, they can, over the period of the 4 years, earn a credit for the work that they're doing.
Wow, that's incentive too.
Yeah, that is.
Incentivizing it, great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, be sure to review your upcoming calendar dates as written below, but also as show up in our superintendent's report. And with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
A lot of support for that. Any discussion? There's no discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.